So my preferred way of making a GIF would be within After Effects because it gives you a little bit more freedom and it's a little bit more freeform if you're used to that kind of workflow. After Effects, I'm going to create a new composition. I'm going to do it at 500 by 500 pixels. Obviously, you're never going to do it in CMYK because it's going to be on screen. So I'm going to start off by creating a little rectangle. Center it, play around with my anchor points. And when I'm happy with it, that's good. I'm going to go in there, click on New Trim Path. So I'm just going to have this rectangle move around in the shape. Just like that. If you want to reverse it, use that, and then it'll go the other way. You guys don't have to do this, but it's a fairly easy exercise. If you use the offset, you can choose where you want it to begin. That's neat. So there we go, keyframe it in. And that's going to happen over the course of a couple of seconds. I'm going to ease it so it looks a little bit smoother. See, it slows down very slightly at the end. Second layer, just going to make a text layer. I'm going to write the word thing. You can do this with whatever you want. And what I want the word thing to do would be to come from nothing to slightly enlarge and then bounce back to a decent size. Preferably this is the final size. So I'm going to use Command left and right to go frame by frame on the composition. It's a lot easier than just randomly clicking new frames. So this is changing the scale. Obviously going to ease it. See, that goes to the maximum size. So at this point, I'm going to raise this one a little bit higher. So percentage of scale is going to be higher. So it is going to pop out at the edges, but it's going to look quite cool. And just remember, in After Effects, we can always scale this around as much as we want. So there you go. You see it gets a bit bigger and then gets a little bit smaller than 100%. Then it gets back to 100%, kind of bounces back. And we can spread this out a little bit by every two, because every 2 frames, it's just going to look like it's bouncing a bit. You could have it bounce continuously if you want. So now a few seconds in, I'm going to make a new keyframe. So this keyframe is one of the little diamond ones that you press on. I'm not having it do anything. This is kind of like a holding one, if you remember those. This means it's going to stay in position until this point, until I create a new keyframe that alters its position or does something new. So this one's going to get bigger and then scale all the way down. There we go. So it's kind of the opposite of what happened when it came in, but with less jiggling. I'm cool with that. This is just an example, and it's just reiterating what you've already done in After Effects. So run it through, make sure it works. I'm copying the layer with Command C, Command V. That's now duplicating that trim path, the little rectangle I made. Currently it's exactly the same, it's blue, so there's going to be no difference on top. So if I shift it along to the kind of point where it's going to start disappearing, I'm then going to change the color of it so I can see it's a different layer. Perfect. See, it's doing exactly the same thing, but just a lot slower because of where it's moved along in the timeline. I'm just going to shift it along a bit so I can actually see what it's doing. There we go. Find a suitable point for it. And so for this, the trim path is identical, but I also want to change the direction, just so it alternates. Let's check everything works. The original one, the blue underneath, when my yellow moves around, I don't want the blue underneath to be visible, so I'm just going to change the opacity as it moves along in a couple of frames. It doesn't matter when it happens because it's already going to be removing itself, but it just means it's going to be fully invisible by the time the yellow actually appears. Because I'm going to make the yellow disappear in a minute. So to make the yellow disappear, what you're going to need to do is choose the alternate trim path. So if you chose end, then do it on the start and have it go from 0 to 100 or 100 to 0, whichever isn't working. Have a play around with it and you're going to get some decent results. So as long as it disappears, that's fine. You can also adjust the offset path so it moves around with it if you want. When you've done it and it plays through quite nicely and you're happy with it, run it through a few times. Check all your keyframes, check nothing's overlapping, and then go File, Export, Add to Media Encoder Queue. Wait for Media Encoder to load. You might want to go get a coffee or something. You know how slow it loads. So your After Effects sequence or your composition will appear within the top right window. All the settings we have on there are suitable, they're working. So where it says H264, change that one to animated GIF. Click on that. Check everything's saving in a good location. Preferably somewhere you're happy with. I'm going to create a new folder for this. Otherwise I'll never find it. And then if you click on this, as soon as the link connection works. Wow, there we go. So we can scrub along this playhead here, and because it's a fairly simple composition, we can see everything that it's doing. That plays back nicely. We can adjust the settings on the right, but to be fair, it's going to work okay. Press play. Finishes in no time, depending on the complexity of your composition. I'm now going to go add a background. So just create a new solid in After Effects. For instance, this is useful if you have a website that's a certain color and maybe there's some nasty glitching happening on your GIF, because GIFs are notoriously low resolution. I'm going to put a solid gray or like a really purpley color if I can find one somewhere. But basically, if you had a red website, you could have the exact same red, provided the GIF will suitably emulate the color, and that will be part of it. If it was transparent, then it might work. If it's not transparent and everything's working on a tile basis, then it's not going to work very well. So this is why I'm just going to add this little purpley gray. I'm going to save this in a separate same-ish location. I didn't, but that's okay. I can go find it by clicking on the blue text, drag it into the correct location, give it a sec. There we go. That one works. Drag it in the right location, drag it into Chrome or something like that. Or you can hit space and OS X will preview it for you. And then you're done. So that's creating GIFs in After Effects and Photoshop. Guys, got any questions, drop me an email. But it should be fairly easy to do. If you had a movie that you wanted to make a couple of scenes from, You could in fact do this in Premiere, or you could do it in After Effects. Just select your in and out points and select a number of frames. This is how people can make GIFs out of scenes from movies. And if you want, you can put some text over it and make some fine new memes. Stay safe, guys. Enjoy.